All right. So what's up, man? Hey, got Weston Wamp on the show. He's going to come on. We're going to ask him a few questions from a guy that really doesn't know much about the local race and all the things that the mayor of the county can do. So Weston, welcome to the show, man.
Gunner, thanks, man. Big fan of yours from afar, and we talked about me coming on and doing this months ago. I'm glad we made it happen.
Yeah, it's crazy. I feel like our names have probably circled each other for years. We're kind of in the same circles, but not. You're about 4 years older than me, probably. You 34, 35?
Yeah, just turned 35.
Yeah, so I just turned 31, so we just kind of missed that whole group there. But I feel like we probably run in some similar circles. But glad you came on. Listen, I know your time's important. We got 30 minutes. We'll get straight to it. At 12 Point, we're going through a hiring process right now, and probably one of the hardest things to do is to get people to come work for some reason. I don't know if it's because of all the remote work that's happening or whatever it might be, but when you're doing these interviews, first of all, we're new to it, so we're learning and we're not that good.
Yeah.
But second of all, it's hard to talk people into even coming to a job. So I kind of have some questions thought out as an interview process, if that's cool with you.
Let's go.
All right, cool. So first, I want to start out. Here's our LinkedIn profiles. You were at UTK 05 to 09.
Yeah.
I was at UTC 09 to 13. Your
Yeah.
first job and your question is, what did I do wrong to start out in track and trace? And you start out as a founding director of the Lamppost Group.
Yeah, well, that was really a stroke of fortune for me, and I'm not sure you did anything wrong at all, Gunner. I mean, just about as many people know you as anybody in our community, and but we did. The roots of Lamppost are in the same roots as your career. The logistics industry in Chattanooga is not only our legacy industry; it's our highest growth industry. And Lamppost started because the guys who had started Access America Transport had a vision to invest in and support a generation of entrepreneurs. And I was 23 years old, had lived in Nashville for a year out of school, wanted to put roots down in my hometown, and happened to connect with the guys always known as the Access America guys, Ted Allen, very large, Alan Davis.
Right.
Alan
Great guys.
had been a day camp counselor of mine when I was a kid. And so we reconnected in my early 20s there. They were getting this thing off the ground. I came in as the marketing guy. Was one of the first two people in the organization, so ended up with this title of a founding director. I did mostly communications, not just for Lamppost, but for Access America, for several of the other portfolio companies. And then in the years after that, transitioned on the investment side, would vet some investments for Lamppost, but then led the transition into Dynamo, which is really the first logistics-focused venture capital fund in the country. It's one of the reasons why it's had such success is that we honed in on this industry where we could claim in Chattanooga to have some expertise, but also gave us a very specific thesis to go and invest around the world. So I didn't do anything different, Gunner, than you, man. Just much less athletic. That would have been the difference in me and you at 23. I just caught a good break where these guys who just really the most successful entrepreneurs in their generation in our county came across me. We're looking for a guy to help them with some communications and PR stuff.
Sure, yeah, those guys are absolute ballers around town. I mean, they started up Access. So I went in and met with those guys when I was in college. When I was coming out, they were huge pro wrestling fans.
Yeah, they were.
I got into pro wrestling as soon as I got out of college. So they had me come up and meet with them. They were telling me the story. Ted could probably go a little bit more in details about it, but he was telling me the story about how they created a fantasy football type game for professional wrestling when they were at Sanford in college. So it sounds like something those guys would do, right?
That's right.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. Yeah, I was saying that kind of lightheartedly. It's just really cool to see that's kind of the first thing on your resume because it really, stands out. Obviously, everybody knows your pedigree with your dad and stuff, but I like to kind of get into the person, not necessarily the family name, right? Because you're building your own brand right now. So,
and man, my family had been political, and then what a lot of people don't realize really is I grew up in an architecture family. My dad's brothers and my dad's dad were all architects, and my dad was in commercial real estate. He became the black sheep because he got into politics, but even he only served kind of the middle part of his career in politics. So it's funny. I mean, our family is known, I guess, because of politics, but the vast majority of my family's contributions in this community are actually really in design, architecture, development, save for a stint where my dad served in Congress.
Cool. Yeah, that's really cool. I had no clue. I didn't know that. All right, so the next part. So you're the founder of the Millennial Debt Foundation. Go a little bit into that. Like, what is that?
Yeah, I had this vision a few years ago that Washington is a total mess. We're lucky if Washington's crafting policy for the next year,
Mm-hmm.
let alone the next decade. And government, especially self-government, like our experiment in freedom here in America, relies on us making tough decisions for the next generation. And I think
Sure.
we've done that throughout the country's 250-year history. We have failed, I think, in the last decade or two. One of the reasons the national debt is what it is. It's one of the reasons why Republicans and Democrats really, if they agree on anything, it's that they agree consistently that when in doubt, they'll just borrow money against me and you and our kids. So I thought it'd be really a new voice in our national politics organization advocate for smarter financial policy, fiscal policy, budgeting, coming from a millennial perspective. And I had gotten to know a handful of younger members of Congress. The best known of them is Dan Crenshaw from Texas. And so I
Yeah, I love
rallied a
him.
group of guys together, business guys and members of Congress, all millennials, to say, hey, let's collectively, let's build a voice here and let's challenge from both sides of the aisle. I mean, our organization is not partisan. From both sides of the aisle, let's challenge our leaders to think generationally, even if that means making tough decisions.
Sure. Well, that's the
And so
biggest thing. A lot of people
that's
don't want to make tough
basically what the
decisions.
organization does.
Okay, well, cool. And so you're also a member of the Tennessee Board of Regents. So I guess I get to a lot of people are going to ask when it comes to politicians in the area and people kind of taking over, not government, but like getting this to these levels like you, like Hampton County Mayor. Like, what would you say is your primary source of income right now to be able to, other than selling to get campaigns and money and backing, like what is your primary income for your family?
So I'm paid as the founder and president of the Millennial Debt Foundation. We have a board.
Okay.
We're 501c3. We're funded by the largest conservative foundation in America, the Bradley Foundation. And then I work as a contractor. This is what I've done since I left Dynamo. I sold my stake in Dynamo several years ago. And then I serve as a consultant to, and I host a podcast for an organization, a nonpartisan organization in Washington. So those two engagements are most of my income.
Awesome.
Have been for 4 years, I guess.
Awesome,
So in
man.
terms of what do you do for a living?
Sure.
That's what I do for a living. Obviously, it's much more complex. And I got one opponent who's a realtor. Everybody knows what a realtor is. One who for a long time sold windows and siding and then sold that company. Easy to understand. What I've always done is, it requires a little explanation. And then you mentioned the Board of Regents. That's the state board that governs all of our community colleges and technical colleges. It's an unpaid volunteer role, but it's a pretty big deal. It's an honor to serve. Most of the people who serve on the board are twice my age. And just to be engaged in, particularly at this time where this is the golden era to enter the trades, right? Whether you're going into welding or auto body repair, you can make a fortune. Plus, you're getting the skills that'll lead to, if you want to, a life of entrepreneurship, small business ownership, and just a real privilege to be able to support. It's Tennessee's largest college system, over 100,000 students here in Chattanooga. The technical college, TCAT Chattanooga and Chattanooga State are two of the 40 schools that our system governs.
Cool. Yeah, man. So trades are kind of going away, right? They're getting away from all that stuff. So we got to get some more people educated on doing the things that a lot of people don't know how to do, and that can provide a good living for them.
Yeah, I mean that's my passion, man. That's at the end of the day why I'm running. County government is misunderstood by a lot of people. It's confusing to folks who may not be from Chattanooga or not from Tennessee that we kind of have two mayors. You get a mayor of the city of Chattanooga and a county mayor. In a word, I tell people your city mayor is a crime job. In a word, county mayor is an education job. That's just a reflection of the budget. 64% of the county's budget is public education. Public education, it affects everything. It affects crime directly. It affects the quality of your workforce, which is a challenge you guys have at 12 Point. And then even economic development, which is this kind of political buzzword term. What it really means is your town a good place to do business? Is it a place where companies can grow? Is it a place where other companies may look to relocate, open a regional office? Sure. And the answer is our quality of life here is awesome. From an economic development standpoint, we're actually pretty mediocre. Our workforce is mediocre. That, in my opinion, is a direct reflection of our public school system, which in some areas of our county is great. In some parts of our county is pretty mediocre. And then we ought to be honest about the fact that a lot of young people in this county are stuck in a failing school.
Sure. Yeah, man. And the public school system, I'm a product of it. So I got out, right? I did okay. But a
Yeah.
lot of people kind of get left behind when it comes to that. So that's kind of my next question. I was going to the county website. I was looking at what the county mayor is, and I'm looking under it, Coppinger. You get elected to a 4-year term by the citizens of Hamilton County to be the head of the executive branch of Hamilton County government. So that sounds like you're the president of Hamilton County is the way I kind of read it.
Yeah.
Responsibilities include overseeing preparation and admin of official budget, financial reports, along with working with division heads on daily operations to ensure that all applicable laws, policies, and resolutions are implemented. So in simple terms, you kind of said the county mayor is education. So other than education, what does the county mayor do that the average person might not understand?
Well, you play a role that's somewhat invisible in economic development, but this is the reason that I usually weave together education as being just central to almost everything, almost all the challenges we face as a community. Because when you're working on, for example, our current county mayor has been working on a couple big job recruitment projects with foreign investors who are looking at making a big play in this county. And when you're making a case for a company to come here and make an investment, or when you're making a case to a company like Steam to stay and grow here, a lot of that conversation is not just about economic incentives or tax breaks. It's about the quality of public education, Gunner. I mean, so a lot of times people go, man, you talk about education a lot. And I go, it's because we don't do it real well. And it touches everything. I mean, I think if you really want to dig deep and understand why is violent crime been on the rise here for a decade when it's actually been on the decline across the state of Tennessee and across the country, which it has. I think it goes back to the fact that in a lot of our most challenged neighborhoods, where you for generations had access to vocational education, you could come out of the public school system with a set of skills that would serve you well, that would put you immediately into a high-paying job. You can't even get on a vocational track anymore at Brainerd High School. You walk in some of our most challenged high schools, the kids are like zombies, man. And you're the opposite of this, but I know a lot of guys in our age group, but certainly kind of 10 years behind us, who came out of school without much of a hope, may have even gone and gotten a 4-year degree, but it hadn't served them well. Right? I mean, how many guys who got a 4-year degree and they don't do anything even close to what that degree prepared them to do? So I've
got one hanging in my office. I do nothing about it. So
there you go. I just think education fundamentally is broken. It ought to focus on producing good citizens. Good citizens are people who are going to work hard. They're going to contribute. They're going to give more than they take. And then ideally, a public school system would equip young people with a set of skills, whether they use them or not. People don't talk about vocational education as much anymore. I not only talk about it in the traditional sense when you're talking about welding and plumbing, pipe fitting. I'm talking about it in kind of a 21st century way. I helped start. We're going to announce it formally in the middle of May. But I brought the CEOs of the largest logistics transportation companies together several months ago. These are your CEOs of Kinco, Covenant, Tranco, US Express, Steam, on and on and on. And I said, hey, I think we can create a new program at Chattanooga State that's going to be a 2-year track, 2-year schools in Tennessee are free. You might be able to start here at the Future Ready Institute. The first one's going to be at Ottawa High School. Let's train up folks for a career in the logistics industry, Like, why send, if you want to be a part of the logistics story that's continuing to unfold here, let's let sophomores, juniors, and seniors who are beginning to have a vision for the rest of their life, let's let them begin to get acclimated to that industry. Maybe all you need is a 2-year degree, right? I mean, doing what you're doing now, you'd have probably been better served educationally with a hyper-focused 2-year degree in transportation logistics, maybe with some business classes, rather than the 4-year degree you got. I mean, I went to UT, made good grades, got a communications degree. And the dirty little secret is I didn't learn much, man. I had a lot of classes with football players. And, if you're in a generalist degree in an SEC type school, yeah. I mean, listen, you know what I'm saying, right? And I mean,
dude,
a lot of
I was about
guys,
to say my degree was football. Like, they made a degree for me to get out of school. It was called football, and I learned people skills. I learned how to be in front of the media and answer questions at the end of games. That's what I learned in school. I didn't learn anything about, like, I tell everybody all the time, like, I feel like university is almost pointless at this point. It's running up the debt. Obviously, if you have a certain career path, you're going to be a doctor, or a lawyer, or an engineer or something, sure. But if you're just getting a degree to get a job in logistics, just come out of high school. I can teach you everything you need to know right here. You're good.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I agree that it should be in the high schools. Now, speaking to that, you said you did that at Chatt State, or you pitched that to Chatt State.
Yeah.
I may have been in a meeting with the University of Tennessee Chattanooga that's trying to put together their own freight broker school.
Yeah.
And I was also in there with guys from Steam and Coyote and US
Yep.
Express and Trident and all the big players in town. So,
Yeah.
what, is that something you were involved in as well, or is that kind of something
Well,
they're kind
that's
of piggybacking off
I
of?
think, yeah, we started doing what we're doing on the 2-year college side. We're building out an institute that's going to involve US Express, a future ready institute that's going to be in some space over there. Our program, just because Chattanooga State's a 2-year college, we're going to send kids down a 2-year track. I mean, the truth is, I came up in business around the brokerage industry, and you don't need a 4-year degree. I mean, knock yourself out if you want to go the UTC route. I think at Chattanooga State, we can actually tailor make a program that's actually more real. I mean, the problem is, if you go, as you and I both did, if you go on that 4-year track, you're wasting your first year, right? The first year is just a total waste. It's like, get ready to be a big boy. And then a lot of times, about half of what you learn in years 2, 3, and 4 are pretty wasteful. So, our program's gonna be a little different. Ours is gonna be workforce development oriented. It's gonna be more nimble. You can get it done, maybe as short as 18 months to an associate's degree. If you're hung up on a bachelor's degree, you can go that UTC route. My guess is that in the future, what we're working on at Chattanooga State will dovetail into a pathway into UTC if that's the route you want to go. So they're not the same project, but they do involve a lot of the same partners. I think ours is just quicker down the pike, and we're actually making our announcement in May, and you'll be able to enroll in the classes this fall at Chattanooga State.
So it'll actually be a accredited class taught at Chat State.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, we're going to have a logistics path at Chattanooga State beginning in the fall of 2022, and we're announcing it in less than a month.
Really cool. So that's big for our city. That's really big, or our county.
I mean, and another kind of differentiator. I secured about $13 million in funding from state government to build out the institute we're talking about. I don't know where their project is in terms of funding, but a part of ours, we've got a path that's more kind of a white collar path, if you will, into fleet management, brokerage, risk management, et cetera, even transportation IT. But our TCAT is one of the largest truck driving schools in the region, and we're going to be able to expand that at least by 2 times. We've identified a new site in Soddy Daisy. So there's multiple components of us expanding our transportation and logistics offerings at Chattanooga State. Some of them are going to be on a maintenance side, some are going to be on the driving side, and then the new concept that we're going to be rolling out here in a month is the path to an associate's degree.
Sure, man. Hey, well, I know a guy in Soddy Daisy that might happen to have a logistics company, so if we can help out, you let me know.
Let's go. Yeah.
Hey, so you talked on, you raised $13 million from the government for one thing. When you use a Dynamo on your LinkedIn profile, it says you raised $18 million in another aspect. So obviously you have a background in marketing. You have a curiosity, or at least a passion at some point, for sales. I'm in sales. I do our training here, run our accounts and everything. So give me an idea, kind of talk to the people now, get away from the politics side of it, but you can talk about your experience through the campaign trail. How important is sales, like the basic skills of sales and being able to communicate and persuade and negotiate with people on an everyday basis?
It's everything. And and I mean that. I think it's everything, no matter what you do. I mean, obviously, if you're directly in sales, your ability to communicate is going to be your ability to put food on the table for your family. But I think these skills are more important today than they've ever been, because so many people in the world are just here. So many young people moving forward. I'm thinking, as a dad of 4, I'm thinking a lot about how my kids are going to relate to other people in a world that's just dominated, to a kind of gross extent by social media. So those of us who hone skills in not just in communicating and compelling people, but in loving on people and being sincere and genuine and developing real lasting relationships, that the world is short on that right now. And so that, I do think probably the greatest sales effort of my life, if you will, was raising that first Dynamo Fund, which was $18 million from scratch. Probably 80% of the money was raised here in the Chattanooga area, some from Birmingham, some from Nashville. But going around and selling a vision that had never been sold. Nobody had ever started. First of all, there'd never been a formal venture capital fund in this community. One that was in biotech, but other than that, it was the first venture capital fund in little old Chattanooga, Tennessee. And then secondly, it was really the first transportation logistics focused venture capital fund ever. And so to write a deck that had never been written for a guy who didn't come from an investment background, and even Ted and Barry and Alan, the guys who were originally on that journey with me, they had great success in business, but not as investors, not managing money for other folks. And I want to clarify on the state side. I didn't go raise that money, but what I did is I used my position on the Board of Regents to advocate through our chancellor and also to the Commissioner of Finance in the state of Tennessee on the governor's team that they fund this project that we had envisioned down here. And so similar kind of deal, right? I mean, it's just, it's advocacy. It was single source though. That $18 million fund came from dozens and dozens of investors.
Sure.
But man, I do just think in the world we live in, your ability to say what you mean is important, like meaning what you say for sure, but like you actually being able to articulate what you really mean and then not sell it like a grifter. I mean, I think that's the other thing is, so we live in a time of a lot of introverted people who are just sort of self-consumed and worried about what their image is like. And we also live in a time of just kind of grifters and manipulators in the world of social media. And so it's striking a balance where you're true to yourself and you're in it to serve other people. And ultimately, because the world, again, this is a need for that right now. I think people who focus on that will thrive in the years to come.
No, I'm with you. I think you make a lot of great points right there. Sales is obviously, I believe sales is everything as well. I just think it's really cool. I mean, obviously you're running for mayor and all that stuff, but like to raise that much money, man, like that's a skill that a lot of people don't have, and that's an accomplishment that a lot of people aren't ever going to touch, right? Yeah. So that's why I wanted to ask you. Now, what about the sales when it comes to the campaign trail? So obviously you're having to raise money for the campaign, and there's marketing and there's advertising. I'm not saying you're selling people. What I'm saying, you know what I'm talking about, using the skills of sales to go out there and get those votes, because obviously that's talking people to showing up to vote is the most important aspect of your job right now. So kind of talk me through your strategies on that compared to the other guys.
Well, couldn't be more different than the other guys. And here's why. And we'll see whether it ultimately ends up being successful, but it is authentic. I write my own TV ads. I have written the campaign plan. I got friends who who advise me and who I bounce stuff off of. But both of my opponents have hired out-of-state firms to come in and write ads and buy their media. Man, this is a local race, and like, I'm like you, man, I'm a child of this county and son of the county. I know it. I know its challenges. Here's my vision. I don't want to go. I'm not one of these guys who tells people what they want to hear. My desire here has been to give a vision and then bring people alongside me on that vision, right? Rather than, I always tell people there's kind of two ways to run a campaign. You can poll and see what people want to hear, and then you can tell them those things. Or you can set a vision based on what you really believe to be true, and then go sell that, bring people. That's the road less traveled, but I think that's the more authentic one. That's where my heart's at in this thing. A good example, I think, of good communication in a campaign. I've been talking ad nauseum for 6 months about vocational education, the need to get back to it. That message has crystallized for me in the last few weeks because I've begun specifically talking about the decision in 1991 to close down our downtown vocational high school called Kirkman. Kirkman was a full-blown technical and vocational high school. It's set where the IMAX Theater sits now. Its football field is where the Lookout Stadium is. It was for generations this incredible launching pad for people into the skilled trades, a life of dignified work. And in the name of development, it got bulldozed around the time, I guess you were born. Were you born in 91?
91, man.
There you go. And so like a lot of people in our age group don't know that. They don't get it. And so just a visual, let me show you a little ad. I made this at about 12:30 the other night, just sitting on my couch at home. And I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm going to try to make it work. It's a little image I created. Check that out right there. That's
I saw that on LinkedIn. Yeah, I saw that.
If you see that field back there, man, that's where that Lookout Stadium sits. And so when I say the words "bring back Kirkman," this is this long diatribe I could give about vocational education and how it's led to hopelessness, maybe chronic hopelessness in our inner city. It's a contributor. A lack of vocational education contributes to an increase in violent crime. I can give a whole speech on that. But when I say "bring back Kirkman," to a generation ahead, 2 generations ahead of us, our parents' age, our grandparents' age, when I say bring back Kirkman, it evokes nostalgia. It reminds them of a time where we did offer young people who might not be traditional learners or who may just not want to go off to a 4-year college, even if they're plenty smart enough. So, I think that's kind of a good example of how, in 3 words, we capture the essence of our vocational education message. My desire that our school system would focus more on producing good citizens than just people headed off to a 4-year college. So that's the kind of stuff I enjoy, is where where you strike a chord with people in a way that evokes emotion, but also has a plan. There's like a real tangible, realistic plan of action.
No, I agree with everything you said, especially with the vocation. Like the Kirkman's idea, I mean, that's great. Bring it back. I think that'd be cool. It'd definitely help out our county and our city.
Yeah.
All right. So last thing, 25 minutes will be the last question. So when you was at, what was the Dynamo, not Dynamo, what was the first one again? Founding director of Lamppost. So Lamppost had ties to Access America, obviously, which was bought out by Coyote, which was bought out by UPS. And then one of their, I guess you would call it an entity of some sort, Steam Logistics, eventually spun off and became what they are today, which they're absolutely balling right now. Tons of employees, creating a lot of jobs in the area, starting branches up in other spaces as well. Got friends over there doing good things. Their marketing is great, all this stuff. They are on a campaign trail themselves right now about ending non-competes, right?
Yeah.
So ending non-competes, and I think that that's a great message. Also think that that's going to happen regardless whether it's campaigned or not, maybe eventually. And I don't, some of it doesn't add up, right? Should there also be a conversation around changing the verbiage of non-solicits as well when it comes to certain industries, instead of it being so black and white, or should it just stay with non-competes?
When you say non-solicits, clarify what you mean.
I guess the way I understand it, and listen, I could be wrong. I'm not the smartest. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. But the way I would say a non-solicit would be, say a non-compete is you can't go work at another company in the same industry, right? You can't be recruited by another company, pulled, swayed. A non-solicit would be you can't deal with the customers that were at the prior company you were at, but you could go there. So that's kind of the way I understand it. You can't solicit the business, but there could be legal actions, and that seems to be what the major play is now. It's like, hey, there's no non-competes. You can come here, you can go wherever, but you can't go anywhere and work on any accounts that we're. So it kind of hurts you anyways. So should there be a conversation? Not to say that it should be ended or it should be stronger, but like a conversation, because there is outlying conditions. There is customers that want to go with other employees, and logistics is huge in this space. I think it's a conversation that needs to be had eventually.
No, I get that. And I think you're right. Also, one of the reasons that I had the vision for a 2-year path that would originate at Chattanooga State, where you could specifically be trained up into the brokerage industry, is I think in the same way that we are becoming, Chattanooga is becoming, one of the most notable hubs of brokerage. We ought to, from an education perspective, we ought to double down, triple down on that, because the part of, at least in this community, part of that non-compete issue would be addressed if we made this generational commitment to building the most incredible logistics workforce in the country, right? We could do that. Like if we started selling middle schoolers and high schoolers on a vision of them taking on a career in what is a very entrepreneurial industry, man, let's go tailor make our workforce in that direction. Like there are so many examples around the country and across the world of communities doing that. Let's not try to do everything well. That's one of the reasons that this fund that I started was focused on the logistics industry. I told people, like, I don't think the next Facebook is likely to be started in Chattanooga. It's actually, there's a very high likelihood that a great transportation company could be started in this region, And so the way I want to address this as much as I can, because it's not a huge runway to get yourself trained up into the logistics industry, right? I mean, that realistically, brokerages do it in a couple months of training. I think you could probably introduce a novel 2-year path. That's what we're going to try to capture at Chattanooga State. But I mean, I'd almost have this vision that, and I know it's optimistic, but that we could get to a place in this community where we're exporting brokerage talent rather than just kind of constantly battling for each other's employees.
Sure, yeah, creating a training program to a point to where other companies from other states and other cities and other countries are coming in and grabbing our people in the scenic city to do logistics. Yep. So I guess my biggest thing is I just want to have conversations with people in the industry about non-solicits. I could be corrected immediately, but I just think that there's a deeper conversation to be had as much as there is for a non-compete, because I'm against both of them.
Yeah, makes sense.
But hey, man, we're at 30 minutes. I appreciate it. I respect your time.
Yeah.
If you have anything else you want to say or talk about, we can definitely talk about it. But if you need to bounce, man, I appreciate you coming on and expressing some of your thoughts.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you letting me come on and talk a little bit about my career, a little bit about why I'm running. You know, what you put into a political position is what you're going to get out of it. And so in this case, I'm offering the county an 8-year vision for public education that will lead to, I think, a very different workforce than the one that we have today. And also, ultimately, lower crime. And I even think, I was telling you before we started, this morning I met with a mom who lost a daughter to an overdose. I mean, you talk about one of the real challenges in our community. A lot of times people want to talk about roads and wastewater, and these things matter. I just deeply believe that people matter more. That's where our most urgent challenges as a community are, and where we can give a hope and a pathway to a young person to a great career. I think that's the highest role of local government, and that's why I'm running, man.
Well, hey, Weston, I enjoyed the conversation. That was the first time we really got a chance to talk and got to know a little bit about you.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, if you're in the city and you're running for mayor, there's going to be people that like you and people that don't, right? That comes
fair
with
enough,
being
man.
out there.
I got a lot of both.
I've heard from both before doing this, and I did not let anyone sway my decision. Dude, you're A-okay with me, man. You shoot it straight. I liked all your answers, and you know, you got my vote. So I appreciate you coming on and using this platform.
Appreciate you, man.
All right, man. We'll see you later.